testing new opportunities. And I think that's one thing um, founders need to pay attention to as they do regularly test and experiment as you scale. Another thing I would say is a do for me is the importance of prioritizing your early customers. Those first 50, 10, 100 customers that you get, they become an advocate for your business. So it's very important that you actively pay attention to these customers. For me, my downs would be overcomplicating your product, right? I get to have an opportunity to speak to a lot of founders, and especially with the buzz around technology and terms like agentic AI, deep tech, and all of these buzz, founders are putting in overcomplications into their products. You struggle to find exactly what a product is supposed to be solving, or what problem your product is supposed to be solving, because there's just so many unnecessary features that can confuse users and slow down adoption in the long run. And then lastly, I would say don't believe that, uh, or I think similar to what Fernando had said as well, don't assume a one size fits all. Ensure that you're regularly segmenting your users. Ensure there's very good personalization across, especially those early first sets of users. Don't believe that it's a one size fits all for every type of user that comes on board your platform. I think that would be my feedback on this. Thank you.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you very much to both of you. Really appreciate that. Um, okay, let's let some people come in. Admit. Right. I think it's time we go on to our Q&As. Maybe a good idea to reset the conversation first. So for those of you that have just tuned in, this is Startup Growth Q&A. If I'm not mistaken, it's our 161st session. We've been doing these for, oh boy, over 4.5 years now, where we've had over 290,000 people, or about 290,000 people, rather, shall I say, tune in, as we've helped over 3,000 founders. None of that would have happened without people like Bumi and Fernando, and their fellow founders. So please feel free to follow them on LinkedIn. Why are we here today? We're here to help founders with whatever questions you may have in terms of your startup journey, in terms of your business. Because I personally am a strong believer in the fact that nothing really happens until somebody helps, somebody sells something. But when it comes down to it, you see, over 90% of startups fail. And the top three reasons for that are: one, market fit; two, running out of money; and three, not having the right people. And as these two gentlemen have already alleged or illustrated, there's one thing that matters, and that is you being able to sell your product or service to enough people that will keep your business afloat and hopefully also help you thrive. So we're going to be taking some questions, and we'll obviously try and tailor them to your needs based on our experience and backgrounds and what we've gone through. And there's no need to be shy. There's no need for you to feel reluctant about it. It's a learning curve for us all. Your questions today can be on anything to do with, let's say, user, vendor, partner, client acquisition, sales, marketing, branding, advertising, growth hacks, go-to-market, and all that jazz. All you have to do is drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic. You'll introduce yourself and then fire away with your question. And that is here on Microsoft Teams, because it's an only audio call. If you are on the live streams, which are now all of them live and running, I can see the feeds. Whether that is LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that unfortunately we are unable to monitor those questions there. So you'll have to join us here live on Microsoft Teams. Quickest way to do that is either to click on the links that should be on all the live streams, or simply go to our website, startup2scaleup.club, find today's session, which is Startup Growth Q&A 161. Click join. You'll then find a link there, and through that you can tune in from whichever platform or location you're at, because being audio only means it's easy to join. Once you're here, then drop your questions in the chat and we'll give you the mic. If, however, your questions today are not on growth, please save them for the other conversations we host. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising. Second Friday of each month is UK Startup Law, and third Friday of each month is UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. When you're on our site, you may also want to join our WhatsApp community. We've got some amazing groups of founders, investors, and operators, and of course, our panelists that you can connect with. Now, you've probably noticed I've been a bit rusty because I had some mammoth problems with our tech this morning, or just as I was about to go live. But hopefully that won't happen in the next 40 minutes, which is for how long we'll be here. We'll go on to our first question. I'll read it. I'll read it out loud for the live streams, but the panelists can read it in the chat. So this is, okay. We're a seed stage clean tech startup in Glasgow offering low cost portable solar kits for off-grid households. Although Instagram and Twitter campaigns have gained some traction, we've failed to connect with advocacy groups and environmentally conscious consumers who could amplify our reach. How can we leverage social media marketing through partnerships with environmental influencers, interactive storytelling campaigns about user experiences and collaborations with UK eco charities to build credibility and grow your audience? Well, a couple of things worth, and I wish you were here live so that we could go through this and ask you some back and forths. But first thing that comes to mind, is there a big enough market for this here in the UK? Okay, there may be some people that want to kind of go for a weekend off the grid and stuff like that, but I think I would want to do some more research and find out, where is your main market? Because you've got to find a big enough market for you to make money and make a ton of it. Otherwise, there's no point. But let's hear what the panelists got to say. If we can try and take about a minute each on this, that would be great. So let's go with Bonmi first, and then Fernando, please.
All right, thank you, Anton, and thank you for that question. So I think for me, one of the key things I like to push when it comes to growth, it's largely organic first off. Especially speaking from experience, I am always a huge lover of organic growth before you can start trying to implement any form of paid acquisition or any form of paid growth. Now, for this business, my first set of recommendations would be, just like you had mentioned, partnerships. Top of my head, there are a few eco charities that I know and NGOs that I know, for instance, like Friends of the Earth and a few other eco charities that play in this space. Have you been able to come up with some bit of proposal where you could reach out to these advocacy groups or co-charities to partner with them to do some work together, right? Offer them some value, also offer them some, what's the benefit they will get from you or from your brand wanting to co-create or co-launch your growth strategy with these type of businesses. That's one key thing I want to look out for. Now, once you've been able to find the right set of partners and been able to build out the right set of values, right? Look at how you could be able to co-create events together. Take, for instance, community events, online webinars, where you are going to be rightly educating the right set of customers or the right set of individuals you're trying to approach. From these events and from these online or this early stage partnerships, you could use this to generate the right set of interactive storytelling content that can eventually help sell or help to push your product better. This content can help encourage early adopters, people who start using your solar kits, to be able to talk about the impact of these kits in their day-to-day life. And then with that, with your testimonials, you can start generating the right set of interest before you can even begin to start thinking of micro influencers, because most times you'd want to pay these influencers certain fee. And like I said, for me, it's usually organic in the first round. So in summary, I would say look at partnering with the right people, work with co-charities, work with NGOs that already have these users and communities that you can go and launch your solar kits with, and then use these partnerships that you get to create very interactive stories that you can use as testimonials to then build a much larger campaign structure for your business. That would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Well, first of all, I think it's important to say I have very limited experience with this particular space. So obviously bear in mind that when you hear my advices, right? But I would take a step back and think a little bit like Anton alluded to. So if you have not yet think about the market sizing for this, in the sense that, okay, even if you acquire 30% of the market, the market share, would that be enough, right? Because I don't know, it seems to me that there is an interesting investment here when it comes to the portable solar kits. So I don't know at what scale you need to be to really have a business here, right? So I think that's an important and fundamental question, right? You might have done that, you might have never thought about that, but I think it's time to go to the Excel sheet and put some numbers that and essentially say, okay, where do I need to be for this to really become a business, right? Having said that, I think this is a very, as again Anton alluded to as well, this seems to me like a very, very, very niche space, right? Where I want to connect with what Bumi said, whereby very likely you have associations, you have people that live at the same style that they have, they live on the same groups of WhatsApp, they discuss the same things, they go to the same events, and equally, I believe there is some sort of support or scheme coming from the government as well. So maybe connect all the ideas that Bumi mentioned, which I fully agree, which is like, okay, try to identify the top 3 communities, where they are, where do they talk about that, whether this is a problem for them or not. Are they concerned? What's the solution right now? How do they do solar energy for off-grid households right now? I don't really know, right? But having an answer for that would be interesting. And then I would add the government side of it. It might be that you, with the right angle, obviously government is always very tricky, but you can be a solution for something that the government based may be struggling to provide to these people. So yeah, it's all about, just summarizing, it's all about finding the right 1 or 2 partners to start with, rather than going big. Like I mentioned at the beginning, it's just being focused that will probably bear the initial fruits, and then the initial ones will be your reference clients for the future, like we mentioned before. That's everything from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Right, here, we now got 32 minutes to go. We're taking questions on how to grow your startup. If you're on Microsoft Teams, just drop your question in the chat. We'll then give you the mic and you can ask the team. If you're on the live streams, beware that we are unable to monitor your questions that are live. So you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means if you're like me, you don't need to spend 2 hours in front of the mirror to get here. But you can join from anywhere via any platform or device. Simply go to our website, startup2scaleup.club. Scroll down a tiny bit, find today's session, Startup Growth Q&A 161, click join, and then just follow the steps there. Otherwise, when you're here, just drop your question on how to grow your business and we'll do our best to answer it. We'll now go on to our second question. This is from clean tech for energy storage, but similar field probably to the previous one. But this is a university lab. She just said we're based in England. The stage is that they're preparing for Series A. Situation is it's a few researchers. Researchers are resistant to shift in focus from innovation to customer acquisition. The question she has is, our energy storage spin-out struggles to grow as our academic team remains focused on R&D instead of customer acquisition and scaling efforts. How can we manage this cultural divide by establishing parallel tracks for ongoing research and business growth, hiring a commercially experienced leadership team to bridge priorities and incentivizing researchers with equity tied to revenue milestones? Furthermore, how can we communicate the importance of customer-driven feedback in shaping future innovation? Jesus, this is the kind of stuff that would take weeks to get to the bottom of rather than a few minutes on a Q&A. And definitely, if you're not here yourself. Before I pass you to my specialists, a couple of things worth understanding. If you don't have funding to pay a good salesperson, this is going to get tricky. The second part is that it's hard to get anybody else at especially early stages to sell your product or service better than you do. So my advice is whatever team numbers you have, try and bring in a co-founder. But again, that's easier said than done, because finding the right co-founder, believe you me, it's if not harder, it's just as hard as finding a life partner, a husband or a wife. So that's not going to be easy, but you definitely need to start and maybe just find whatever way you can to break that ice. But let's hear what Fernando and then Bumi got to say on this. Fernando?
Yes, just burning my brain with how long it would take, like you mentioned, and I think this is like a good one. But well, the way I look at this, and again, I'm trying to infer some information here, right? So I guess that I'm assuming that if you're preparing for Series A, you already have some traction, you already have some clients out there, so you had some inroads, right? So now it seems to me that you have a small team that they're more like researchers and academic people, and they struggle to basically focus their attention out of their R&D space, which I think it makes sense. Again, some people will be able to understand the business needs. Well, it's very simple. If you don't have customer acquisition, at the end of the day, you are not going to have a business, right? And therefore, they are not going to have money to do their R&D. But there are some people that will simply stay there. So I think that you probably should be still in a founder mode sales motion, which I think it's a very powerful one. And I would recommend, if you were there, to continue there. As Anton mentioned, nobody probably can tell the story better than you can. I think when it comes to incentives, the way that you mentioned here, just tying incentives to revenue milestones, I don't believe that everybody works motivated by the same things. So I'll give you a quick example. So salespeople are very motivated by money, right? You simply go there and create milestones, and they, well, essentially, if they're good salespeople, they're going to do that. But researchers, they might have something different, right? I think you probably have a small team. You got to discover what's in for them, right? Rather than for the company only. So I don't believe this incentivizing model with something simple to do. They already probably have equity in the business. So I think what I have seen in my businesses or other businesses is that the lack of understanding of the implication of the things, right? So it's probably very easy for them, and it's a comfort zone for them to say, I'll keep doing research, right? But do they understand that not acquiring business or clients at the pace that you need? What are the impacts to the business and ultimately to the R&D, to the innovation capability of the business? Sometimes people do not create these connections, right? So it might be your job to show in a very simplistic way, but look, the reality is without customer acquisition, there is no innovation, right? There is nothing to business, there's nobody to pay the bill. So that connection, I think, will be important. And ultimately, apologies for the long answer, not necessarily hiring a commercially experienced leader will kind of bridge these priorities. I think Anton kind of mentioned a little bit about that. So I think at these very early stages, it is very important to have someone that is aligned. Well, either a co-founder, but not necessarily a co-founder. I would say you can find someone, but the most important thing will be probably cultural alignment and mission alignment, right? Typically, these clean tech businesses, there people are very mission aligned. So again, you can find someone that is a very savvy, experienced commercial leader that will essentially be used to work with very established businesses, will come with a lot of processes, but will not make it work. So try to look beyond the experience. There are alternatives like consultants, like fractional leaders, like people that can come and give a more in-depth advice rather than just committing with a lot of money with the commercial leader. So there might be opportunities for you to do something slightly more innovative to get the commercial acumen that you're looking for. That's for me. Again, it's a big one. I'm happy to continue the conversation offline if that makes sense, since I do have experience with this field. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, I think to the person who asked the question, Fernando and Anton has pretty much touched the response, or pretty much given the perfect response. This is your classic academic to commercial scaling challenge that we see almost every day in the startup space. I think one thing that is intriguing to me would be to understand why you think you're already at Series A, based on the stage you said you're preparing for Series A. I think one thing for me was certainly to see why you think you're already at that stage. If a lot of your previous stages had just been largely research with your R&D team and pretty much no customer acquisition, I would really want to see how that structure has been put in place in the first place. But yeah, just like everyone has said, you have to run two separate teams. The research and development guys would always want to continue with their research to explore long-term innovative projects. And most of the time, people in R&D are not usually commercially aware. So you would actually need to have those funds to also have a commercial team set side by side, and both parties are regularly communicating with each other with the incentives or the milestones that have been put in place. But yeah, I think in order not to buttress further from what every other person has said, that would be my feedback. Thank you.
Right, me and my fat thumbs were taking a while to find the mic. Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. I think we'll now go on to another question. Again, I get it. Some people are either unable to join at a certain time, and you want to, what do you call it? You want to maybe listen to the recording, or maybe you don't want to put yourself out there. But none of these questions are silly. None of these questions mean to embarrass you. Well, I'll speak for myself as somebody who's had and started a ton of businesses, and the majority of them having been monumental, spectacular failures. I've learned one thing, and that is that all of these are learning opportunities and character building opportunities. But nevertheless, we'll go on to another question. This is, again, I think at a same stage. And kind of, it's making me think, because there's a lot of companies that think they're at Series A or Series B or whatever they may be, but these often can be more of an art rather than science. Nevertheless, let me pose the other question. Just so that we know, I'll label it as question 3. I've posted it in the chat, and then I will read it out loud for the live streams. And again, just a reminder for the live streams, especially the ones that have just tuned in, this is Startup Growth Q&A. We're here to help founders with whatever questions you have in terms of growing your business. This question comes from a medtech for diagnostic tools. They're based in Cambridge. Again, maybe it looks based on the person's, because this came through Instagram, and it looks like this person may have some affiliation with Cambridge University. So going for Series A, manufacturing diagnostics devices, but struggling to find reliable biocompatible materials suppliers in the UK. We're sourcing biocompatible materials for our diagnostic device, but face challenges securing consistent quality at scale. How can we implement a dual vendor strategy or incentivize smaller suppliers through exclusivity agreements to ensure steady supply without disrupting production timelines? Okay. Why the hell did I post this here? This isn't really a question on growing your business, but the only take I would have on this is as if you were an app, and you want to find both vendors. Let's say you're Uber, and you want to find both vendors, i.e. drivers, as well as users, i.e. passengers. From that point of view, in my experience, it's a matter of working on both fronts, to be honest with you, rather than just one. But I tell you what, I'm not going to go too deep into this. I'll pass it on to the experts if they want to go through it. If not, we'll just go through another question. Let's see, Bunmi, Fernando, anything to add on this, or shall we go on to another question?
I think for me, I would just give this founder simple, straight one-liner response. So when it comes to vendor relationships and the likes, there's something called the categorization and the backup system. So first things first, you're trying to build a dual vendor strategy, right? So you should have your main supplier or your primary supplier. For you to be able to pick out who your main supplier should be, categorize this based on different factors, right? You want to categorize based on capacity, you want to categorize based on reliability, quality, lead time, cost, all of this. Look within the UK and across EU countries and do that categorization. Now, from your matrix system you build out of this categorization, you can then be able to properly pick out your primary suppliers. But then that's what you call the categorization method. But then the backup system is you want to have either smaller or new suppliers that would only be present for overflows or emergencies. So in a case where your primary suppliers are failing to deliver at scale, you have smaller suppliers that would help you keep the tabs running, ensure that you're always having supplies as often as possible. These primary suppliers or smaller suppliers, these secondary suppliers could always have some bit of incentives for them to stay up to date with their quality as well as with their reliability. But they should be present for you when it comes to emergency situations, when it comes to keeping stock, to ensure you have regular stock of items as often as possible. But your main supplier should be the ones to be doing your core work, and you should be able to generate that using the categorization method and building a proper matrix for it. I think that would be my simple response to this.
Thank you very much for that. And just before we go to Fernando, I'm really sorry, Fernando. Bunmi, have you got any articles that you found useful for categorization? And if you do, would you mind either now or maybe later share them on on the live stream on LinkedIn? I've tagged both you and Fernando, and if you don't mind sharing them in the comments so others can maybe get a better idea of how that works. Is that all right?
Oh, that's fine. I would share it afterwards.
Good man. Fernando.
Yes, thanks, Anton and Bumi. No, I don't think I have a lot to add, but I also, because I think I will need a little bit of a better understanding of the scenario here, to be completely honest. But probably want to give one advice around, okay, it seems you have a little bit of a question around how to incentivize to develop exclusivity agreements. And I think sometimes I speak to founders overthinking about these things. And one of the best ways is to speak with them, right? So if you know who these suppliers are, the smaller ones, and you need to build a strategy, categorize a strategy like Bumi mentioned. So it's better to speak with them and literally kind of open up your business model to them and make them understand your needs, and try to understand what will make them commit with something, right? I would imagine, although again, I'm not from this space, that smaller suppliers will be easily incentivized because probably whatever revenue you generate to them, it will be substantial compared to the ones that you can generate for the bigger ones. So that's the thing. Take it simple, speak to them, be open about, hey, I need to create an incentive for you. What does it work for you? So that you have at the same time a model created and some advocates to basically talk on your behalf and share, spread the word. That's it for me, Anton.
Okay. Good idea. Let's move on to another question. We've got 14 minutes to go, so probably time for another couple of questions. If anybody wants to drop them in the chat here on Microsoft Teams, or for those of you that are on the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please remember we are unable to monitor your questions live there, so you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. You can do that via site startup2scaleup.club. Simply go onto the site there, scroll down a little bit, and you'll find Startup Growth Q&A 161. Click join and just follow the steps. I've put another question in the chat. Again, quite a long one. Health Tech for Women's Health Monitoring in Birmingham, their seed stage. Situation is that they're struggling to find credible micro-influencers for niche campaigns. Our women's health monitoring app aims to build trust with a niche audience, but we're struggling to identify credible micro-influencers who can authentically represent our brands. How can we develop a strategy for sourcing influencers with engaged audiences in women's health, such as through platforms that specialize in micro-influencer discovery or partnerships with health advocacy groups? Additionally, what specific content formats, such as influencer-led live sessions, personal health journey stories, or detailed product demonstrations, would help us resonate with target audiences? Finally, how can we track the ROI of these collaborations, ensuring alignment between influencer content and measurable outcomes like app downloads or signups for free trials, whilst maintaining a balance of educational and promotional tone to avoid alienating potential users? Jesus, all right. Another quite an extensive question. Tell you what, I'm going to pass it straight to the panelist for now, and then maybe add something at the end. Let's start with Fernando, and then Bumi, please.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Well, I think I would probably start looking back to where your audience is and what type of content they're more likely to consume. You mentioned it's a niche audience, right? So what I mean by that, I think the type of content and the channels, I think, could depend on who this audience is, right? So I don't know, right? Young women, you consume completely different content from old women, right? So I would imagine like I don't see a 60-year-old basically going on TikTok. Um, I don't see them consuming the short kind of content, attention span kind of type of content we are generating compared to the youth, right? So I think first of all is like if you have that defined, which I believe you have, right? Then I think it's easier to identify that. It's not my area of specialty, but again, that's the most important thing. Okay, you know the demographics, you know the ages of the people that you're positioning to, where they are located, all of that. That will inevitably give you hints around what type of content they will prefer. It's a blog, it's an email, it's a TikTok message, it's a SMS, WhatsApp. I don't really know, right? But that will give you a hint. Um, that will also give you a hint about who can potentially um, be your influencers, right? Which essentially could be someone utilizing your application, right? If you find someone at the right consumer demographic you're looking for that can potentially use that product, um, that you almost kill two habits with one shot, right? You have someone utilizing that, and at the same time, the goal is that that person likes the product, and then obviously the partnership is more likely to be an organic and natural one, right? Um, and I think this is one of the situations where you can have someone joining your business as even as a I'm not it can be a co-founder, but it can be like an advisory for that. So I'll give you a concrete example from my world. I'm working with a digital bank, a first digital bank for students in Western Africa. um, and what they're doing is because they're going to target the youth population, they partner with a TV star down there in one of the countries in Western Africa, because the audience of this lady is exactly the ones that they're willing to go for. So this lady accepted to join the business as an advisor, basically with equity, because she's going to position specifically for her audience. So I think you can probably find that in this case as well. That will allow you to um, be more efficient when it comes to cost and when it comes to test the idea whether this is the best one or not. Um, and then I think the last one that I'll probably mention about is the ROI. Um, Again, I think the ROI, it should be something that should should be there and should be measurable. At the end of the day, um, yes, you can track app downloads, you can track signups for free trials, but you also need to go up to the end, right? In my opinion. So you need to go up to the converted client, right? So a big example, if you find the channel, find the right person, find everything, and you explode on downloads and free trials, but none of these converts, at the end of the day, it'll generate only cost for you probably, right? So you need to go one step more is like, okay, how many downloads, app downloads, how many signups for free trials? Once they finish the free trials, what's the conversion rate to a paying client, right? Is this better than the other channels that I have? You start to have other channels as well, so you can compare and say, well, the cost of this channel, this micro influencer is X, and I am onboarding, I don't know, 1,000, sorry, I'm having 1,000 app downloads a month. I'm having 500 free trials, and I'm having 5 clients, right? Versus the other channels, which will have like different unit economics, let's put this way. So you start measuring this, and that's the way you start testing and saying, well, I'm going to double down on this one. I'm going to stop doing this one. Um, that's essentially what I have for this one. Over to you, Bumi.
Yes, thank you for that, Fernando. And I think you've pretty much done a very good work on that. I think one of the things I'll probably want to speak to the Startup Scale Up Club team. I a lot of founders with the whole concept around the stage at which they are in, right? Trying to understand the concept around seed stage, pre-seed stage concern. I think that's one key thing maybe the team will need to look into to also help founders understand. Now, particularly regarding this, right? I'm not a huge fan of influencing for products as a first step. So that's why I started my response with the stage at which you're in as a product. That is very much dependent on how this response or how my answer is going to be for you. If you're still in your early stage trying to wrap up revenue, generate revenue, confirm product market fits, then you shouldn't be jumping straight to influencers. I would rather stick to my early customers as my influencers personally, because these are people that have personal stories. And to be honest, as long as you're solving a problem that is very, very important to your market, if you solve that problem for one person, statistics have shown that that person has at least 3 to 5 people in their network experiencing the same problem. So, what else, or what's the best way for me then to influence? If I solve a problem for one person and statistics show that they have 3 to 5 people having the same problem within their network, if I solve for 10 people, that's probably me reaching another 30 to 50 people from the same network, right? But then if you want to go in depth to your question, just like Fernando had said, you want to use your content to drive the type of influencers you have. You don't want to go for influencers just because they have a huge following. What is the impact of their following to their network? I remember 2, 3 years back when I was very heavy on influencer strategy. One of the key things I used to do then when reaching out to some of these top TV influencers or top YouTubers would be to get a breakdown of their individual audience. I want to see the number of people on your profile, number of people reaching your profile. I want to see breakdown in terms of age. I want to see breakdown in terms of location. I want to see breakdown in terms of your most interesting type of content. It'll make no sense if you just go to an influencer simply because, okay, let's say uh, they have huge amounts of followers and the influencer is a woman. It's possible that the people following her might not necessarily be interested in your specific type of product. Maybe they are following her for something relating to fashion. That's the huge influence she pulls, fashion. And then going to that person because they have a huge following and trying to sell human health or women health might not really work for you. Even if it's expected that every woman would go through the menstrual health journey, you also want to be very niche based with your type of content and your type of influencer. So you want to look out for platforms that have those specific types of niche category influencers, if that's the route you must have to go in the long run. Uh, Apart from even individual influencers, you can also partner with communities and platforms, right? These are also very low hanging fruit for you to be able to um, wrap up your numbers and grow your numbers across the UK, Birmingham, England, London, across the UK. There are systems and collaborative platforms where they speak mainly about national women's health. There are non-profits, there are clinics, there are support groups that are largely about women's health. Why not partner with those type of patient communities and let them serve as your corporate influencers instead of just going out for individuals? That's another thought you can look at as well. And then, like Fernando had said, look out for the most important return on investment for this collaboration in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you. My quick input on this, on top of the brilliant stuff that both Fernando and Bulmi have said. And by the way, thank you for your support today, Fernando. If you need to go, go ahead. Um, there are now. I've had some hit and miss experiences with influencers, and some can be really useful and really good, and some others not that great. But maybe worth looking into some agencies. And again, with those, it's been even more hit and miss. But for you to go and research every single influencer you might want to talk to, that might, take some time. But if you've got some money to put aside, it might be worth looking to speak to some agencies who represent various influencers. Or, again, it depends the kind of money you're thinking to spend, because maybe with that kind of money, instead of going to influencers, you might just want to go and do some targeted advertising. Nevertheless, it is now 1 p.m., which means it's time to bring this to a close. Apologies for the initial glitches, because literally within seconds before going live, everything crashed down for me. So I had to run and get another iPhone anyway. But thank you to both Bumi and also Fernando, who's left. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. Bumi, any parting words before we let you go?
All right. Once again, thank you for this opportunity, the Startup to Scale Up Club. It's not easy building, to be honest. I've been in the startup space for 7 to 8 years, and I can tell you, scaling or trying to build, it's not easy. And I can understand some of the concerns or worries that a lot of these founders have. But one thing I can also tell you is sometimes the final details is just in making sure you solve the problem and avoid all of the necessary drama that comes with trying to oversell your product or trying to make your product look so flashy and look so out of the extraordinary, out of the world. My startup is currently on the verge of hitting over £100,000 by the end of the year. And we've been doing it fully bootstrapped, no external revenue, no form of marketing. Everything has just been organic. It's now the team is now deciding that, okay, we found product market fit. We're about hitting 100K in revenue. Now let's scale up for 2026, and strategies are now being put in place for scale up, right? But at that early stage, especially if you're an early stage startup, our advice, make sure you're solving core problem. You really, really have solved the problem and validated your market before you start thinking of trying to scale, to partner with influencers, to partner with companies and different types of partnership just to grow your numbers. Because the truth is, while these different strategies or hacks might bring in numbers, at the end of the day, you might start having struggles on the other end around retention, when people will just join your platform and they would not take out any action or commit any revenue to your product just because it's simply not solving a major problem for them. So solve the problem, be very intentional about solving the problem, and you'll be able to scale your product. Thank you.
Here, thank you very much for that, Bumi. Right, a couple of quick things from me before my parting words. Number one, this was Startup Growth Q&A 161. We do this every Wednesday from 12 to 1 p.m. to help founders grow their business, hopefully from 0 to 1, or even from 0 to hero for that matter. On the other hand, we also have some other conversations that we run. Mondays it's talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays it's growth, Thursdays it's fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK startup law, and third Friday of each month is UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. They're all available on our site, startuptoscaleup.club. And actually, when you're on our site, you may also want to join some WhatsApp communities, some WhatsApp groups we have there. At the top and bottom of our website, you'll be able to find a WhatsApp icon where you can join various groups of founders, investors, operators, of course, our panelists and mentors, to connect and learn from each other. I've also just posted in the chat here a link to a specific group we've got for startup growth, if you want to join that. And as far as my parting words, just remember, the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun in the meantime and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, again, huge thanks, especially to my panelists, Bumi and Fernando. Thank you to everyone else that tuned in. Hopefully, we'll see you tomorrow for Startup Fundraising Q&A. We've got some amazing investors at different stages of the investment world joining us tomorrow on the panel. Thank you and God bless. Bye for now.